In 1997, I started right here in Santa Monica as a developer in Symantec Corporation and pretty quickly rose to the ranks. After that, through acquisitions, I ended up in Hewlett-Packard. And then after 11 years, I make a big change, and a very risky change. For the one of you that are not too familiar with the technology industry, in technology, engineering is the core. You are the queen or the king of the company. And then, so when I decided to make this move, I went to Yahoo. And I actually went from being an R&D director to become the chief of staff of a major, a big group in technology in Yahoo. That was right here in Pasadena. It was a group that it was growing significantly. We needed to compete with Google to create the next generation system for search advertising. That move turned out to be one of the best things I have done in my career. And I'll tell you more. So that was Yahoo. And then after that, after 5 years in Yahoo, growing and having more, you getting to report to the CTO of Yahoo and running an entire organization, I was ready to take my next move. So somebody called me from Panda Security, and they said, Maria, do you want to be our Chief Technology Officer and manage an organization in Spanish? And I thought, because all my career had been here, so I thought that was amazing. So after a very hard, difficult hiring process, I got the job. The thing was, what my husband, my husband had to leave things here for us to go there, but he was very supportive, and we embarked on going to Spain. After Spain, then 8.5 years ago, I came to Microsoft. And then I came as an individual contributor. That was hard, and I almost quit after 2 months in being in Microsoft. The culture was not very invited 8.5 years ago, very inviting for people that were coming as a senior woman, and then not being grown in the company. People stay in the company for a long time. So it was very, very hard. But, I broke through, and then with the help of mentors and sponsors, I was able to stay, and then my scope grew pretty big, and in the search engine for Bing and ads and managing, large teams. And now, as Lisa said, I'm part of the Artificial Intelligence Platform Group. So now I am very happy to see how Microsoft, and you all are familiar, reading of, articles about how we have changed our culture and how our CEO Satya have done that. And I'm very proud of that and how the company has evolved, and even more so, sponsoring like the research for HACER and how, we can break, and understand more barriers for Latinas in the workplace. Now, let's talk about excellence. So, excellence is the quality to be outstanding, making something incredible. But I like this definition that Ralph Marston said. Excellence is not a skill, it's an attitude. So for me, excellence can be found in the 4 E's in the word. The first one is explore. And then the definition of explore is to examine or evaluate possibilities. In my case, I explored computer science, and I liked it. I changed disciplines when I joined Yahoo. I explored the possibility of taking a job outside the United States. The more I explored, the more I became curious and excited about the unknown. I asked a lot of questions, opportunities were presented, and doors opened for me. Exploring gets you out of your comfort zone, promotes learning and curiosity, problem solving, while pushing your limits. It is taking risks, trying things which will help you discover new paths. According to a new study by the University of Arizona, found that 15% is the amount of time you should fail, concluding that we learn best when failing that amount of time. It means that we are challenging ourselves just enough to build new knowledge. For me, taking the advice from my mom to do computer science probably was the best career move of my life. The second E is for experience. Experience is defined in the dictionary as an encounter of an event, a feel related to an event, or to an emotion, or an event or occurrence that leaves an impression on someone. For me, experience is being comfortable with living a moment that it may work out, it may not work out. You may like it or you may not like it, but you know it will shape you, and therefore you will go for it. It's about being okay with being uncomfortable. Hazer today, unveiled the report and found that one of the findings from that report was around authenticity and executive presence. 43% of the respondents felt that they have to compromise their authenticity to meet their company's definition of executive presence and to fit in. I have learned in my own experience that it's important to understand your own uniqueness and what you bring something to the table that others don't. Understanding what you don't have to conform and stay true to yourself and still advance is very important. Let me tell you a story about this. Several years ago, I was in a work visit into our teams in China, in Microsoft. And I was in a Q&A session with women. And one of them asked me, Maria, how you made it in a men's world? Because I am the only one. And it took me a while to respond. And then, because that was the first time that somebody asked me that question. And I said, because I compliment them rather than compete with them. I have shown them, and I have shown my capabilities, my uniqueness, my skills, and then what they have seen is the value that I bring to them and what they bring to me. I have learned to leverage the strengths and serve, not only, to my teams, but everybody. So that is my mantra. I am a service on others. If they are successful, I am successful. The same thing with my employees. So I believe that unique experiences have encountered show me that those things, leveraging strengths, servant leadership, and empathy are critical capabilities to break through the corporate ladder. The next E is endure. Endure is to suffer something painfully and patiently. My journey as an immigrant Latina in tech has not been easy. I believe that the challenges and setbacks enable perseverance, strength, and growth. Perseverance builds character, and character defines your own identity and ability to lead. I've been able to overcome many obstacles with endurance. The first one was at Cal Poly Pomona. When I was doing my master's, I was admitted conditionally because I had to take another test. It took me 9 times to pass that test. I finished all the coursework. I only needed to pass that test. That was very disappointing, very challenging. I had a baby, I had to work, I have to do all that. But I persevered, I endured that patiently until I finally passed it. And it was very difficult. Why? Because it was hard for me to understand some of the questions in English. The other thing that I think is very central to enduring is courage. A few years ago, early in my career, I took a job in a small company. That small company is not listed in my slide. That company I joined, and it was strange because all of the people there, I was a dev manager, all of them were men, and all of them were from one ethnicity. So I was new. I am, very new in the job, the CEO, my boss, and other executives call a meeting. And I felt weird in that meeting. And then, by looking at the body language of all these men, I thought that's, it was just feeling weird. They asked me a question. All of them knew the answer, but me. But I had to respond. When I realized that what was happening, I stood up and I told the CEO, I am not going to allow you to set me for failure. And I walked out of that company, and I never returned. So the point was, it was courage, and I had courage to speak. And even though the consequence was bad, I lost the job. But I had to stand for what I believe. So the question is, how do I endure? You need to find, in my case, the right support system. For me, it's daily prayer, support and help from my husband, family, and friends, mentors, and my own board of directors and people that help me. I want to end the endure section with, I like how Henry Ford puts it. Unless you have courage, a courage that keeps you going, always going, no matter what happens, there is no certainty of success. It's really an endurance race. And the last one is for empower. So the definition of empower is to give someone the authority or power to do something or to make someone stronger and more confident, especially in controlling their lives and claiming rights. This is also known as allyship. An ally is a person who makes an intentional decision to understand, to empathize, and act in support of others. In my case, I had two bosses who really empowered and encouraged me to achieve excellence. They were my allies and my sponsors. Two cases. In Yahoo, I was the chief of staff. So as such, you have to be the proxy for the CVP and represent that person in meetings, key meetings. So I had the visibility. But acting as his proxy helped build his trust in me. And in return, his trust made me more confident. Empowering me to be his proxy was an example of allyship and sponsorship. And the last one was 18 months ago. I went to my boss at Microsoft and I shared with him my desire to be part of a board in the next 2 years. And so I was intentional on what I wanted to do, but I needed his support, allyship, and sponsorship for him to pay for the training for me to be part of the board. And then I went to the training, and in last January, I am in a board for a private company. So these two leaders supported, elevated, and sponsored and inspired me to break through the ladder. Without the allyship, it's very hard to penetrate these circles in the company, top circles. So now, when we think about allyship, we typically think about people different from us, typically white males. I think it's time for us to be empowering women, pave the way to the junior generation, other women's, and for us to break the social closure that Lisette talked about it. We can, in our circles, enable others and mentor and sponsor and inspire and do that for other women. And that I'm making that my personal mission to do, and that's what I do in many things that I in Microsoft and other places that I participate, because in the past, it was men that were my sponsor. Now, with things changing, I believe we can make a difference and be a sponsor of other women. So, my last slide here is to summarize. Building excellence requires applying the 4 E's formula in your leadership journey. Explore, take risks, try the new things. Experience, be okay with being uncomfortable. It will shape you. Endure, courage is foundational for enduring and succeeding. Keep going. Empower. It is our time to pay forward and empower other women like us. Thank you. Gracias. Oh.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So thank you, Maria. That was very inspirational. Now we're going to hear from Jessica Kanya. She's the Fulfillment Enablement Executive for Consumer Lending at Bank of America. She joined the company in the correspondent leading channel in 2000, and in recognition of her leadership and contributions to the organization, she received a 2012 Leadership Excellence Award, a 2015 Performance Excellence Award, and a 2019 Diversity and Inclusion Award. Jessica is also a founding member of the Consumer and Small Business Employee Engagement and Inclusion Council. Her parents immigrated from Colombia to Los Angeles in 1967, and she was raised in Southern California and lives there with her husband and children. Please welcome Jessica to tell her story.
Thank you. So I have to say, my parents also told me to go into technology. My brother listened and got a degree in engineering. I started in computer science and ended up in finance. So I was not as good as a daughter. I didn't listen. Listening to the speakers this week and then really reflecting on my journey, there are things that resonated for me, whether we're talking about career development, board readiness. It's important to have strong mentors, to have sponsors that are willing to advocate for us, to be willing to take risks and stretch beyond our roles, and also to be able to advocate for ourselves. For me, these are lessons and skills that I did not learn until I was an adult and a career professional. As Lisette mentioned, I am the daughter of immigrants. My parents came to Southern California from Colombia. They chose Southern California because my dad thought the climate was most like Cali, Colombia, and so this is where we ended up. And my parents came here in search of opportunity, and my parents had challenges growing up for different reasons. My dad's family were persecuted for political reasons, and so they moved around the country a lot. He did not get a formal education, never made it to high school. And growing up, I saw him work long hours and come home and study. And he had these big books that looked horrible. And he was self-taught. He studied manuals for, at one point, mechanical calculators and later computers. He was a self-taught technician, then became a service delivery manager, eventually opened his own small business, building and managing networks for large organizations, including Los Angeles Zoo right here in LA. And so I learned so much about the value of family and working hard from my parents. But again, there were a lot of things they couldn't teach me. They couldn't teach me about the corporate lattice. How do you navigate that? And I am very intentional about saying lattice versus ladder because it's not always up, right? We have to move sideways, up, sometimes down, before we can be ready to move up. They didn't teach me about investments, right? My dad and mother thought that, you work hard, you stick your money under the mattress for a rainy day. So I didn't learn about investment strategies from them. I came into financial services with zero practical financial acumen. And when I joined the workforce, I looked up and I didn't see anybody that looked like me. There were not women in leadership roles. There were very few women of color, if I could find any. Today, I'm very proud to work for Bank of America. More than half of our global workforce is women. More than 40% of our managers are women. We have 6 women on the board, one of which is a Latina, which I'm very proud of. And so things are very different, but there's always work to be done, right? And so, again, when I joined the workforce, I thought that if I put my head down and worked hard, someone was going to notice, right? I just had to, put in those hours, put in that sweat equity, and someone was going to notice. And early in my career, I did achieve some success with that model. And then I applied for my first leadership role. And I applied and applied. I applied 6 times, ladies, and didn't get it. And then I thought, some of my insecurities set in. Am I good enough, right? Am I right for this role? And so I had to push through those insecurities, and I made time with the executive, and I said, look at, this is what I've done, these are my skills, what's the gap? What do I need to do to make myself a viable candidate for this role? And frankly, that was something that was very uncomfortable for me. In my house growing up, loud talking, fast talking, all encouraged. Outside of the house, you appreciated what came to you and you didn't ask for more, right? So it was very uncomfortable for me to ask for that career coaching. And he talked to me about a colleague who, in any situation, regardless of whether they were an appointed leader, they became the leader. They stepped in, they organized the work team, they led them to success, and ultimately, as a result of that, they fostered followership. He also talked to me about how I needed to do the job I wanted on top of the job I had. I had to be a leader without the title. And as a young mother, a young professional, and at the time I was a single mother, taking anything else on my plate, that seemed completely unrealistic. And so I had to, like we talked about yesterday, I had to make choices. And that meant personal sacrifice. There were times where I had to choose time for career development ahead of time for family. Ultimately, because my goal was, how do I give more and be able to contribute and provide for my family? And so those were very, very challenging times. And one of the things that I did as a result is I started to raise my hand. Where are there projects outside of the scope of my job, outside of my responsibilities, that I could raise my hand for and step in as a leader? It gave me opportunity to flex skills that I wouldn't otherwise flex, engage with leaders that I wouldn't have otherwise engaged with. At the bank, we have what we call employee networks. So I think we had someone talk about Ola. At Microsoft, we also have an Ola organization, which is leaders that come together to help advance other leaders. And so I raised my hand and I said, is there a committee that I can sit on? Is there work that I can lead? And the great thing about these volunteer organizations, that they do not turn anyone away that wants to come and sign up to own something, right? They were very happy to have me. And so I had the opportunity to, flex those leadership skills and show people that I could lead before I had the opportunity to lead a team, right? Because how do you start and break into that new role? For me, that was really it. And so that executive became my first mentor of many mentors. And today, I have a very diverse panel of mentors. I have mentors that are within my line of business, outside of my line of business, but within the bank, outside of the bank. We've talked a lot about corporate directors in the last day, and we talked about the different committees on the boards, the importance of having diverse skills of those board members. I think of my panel of mentors as Jessica's board of directors, right? And so I need to ensure that I have people with diverse skills that I can lean on for different things. I seek out mentors that have skills that I admire or aspire to have. I don't want mentors that think like me, have the same experience as me, because I don't want to sit across from someone and then just say, yep, I would do that. Yep, keep doing that, right? I have found a lot of value in mentors that are going to challenge me and give me that feedback that maybe I didn't know I wanted, right? Have those difficult conversations with me. The other thing that I have found really important in my career, we talked about sponsors and the organic thing that happens when someone identifies work that you do. And I've found a lot of value in that. But something that I've been very deliberate in that has been successful for me is seeking out sponsors. So how do I find the people that have a voice at the table, right? That sit in talent planning discussions, that talk about porting talent across businesses, especially, I work at a very large organization, right? So how do I create exposure outside of my day job? So I find those people, and then I have to narrow the list by the people that use their voice that sit at the table, right? Because we all know people that have a seat, but they don't use that seat of power, right? And so I have to find those people and then create natural opportunities for exposure so that they can see what I deliver. They can see the results that I can contribute, and that way they will have enough facts to be able to speak about me at the table, right? So again, I've been very deliberate about seeking out sponsors in that way. I have a mentor that has been very critical to my success, and he is still a mentor to me today, that has given me a few pieces of advice that have been really helpful. One is around kind of calibration every year of my career. And so every fall, as I start to think about my year-end self-assessment, I reflect on what I've accomplished in the year, and I also think about what am I going to deliver next year? What can I contribute to the line of business, to my team, for myself? What is that big win that I can put on the board? And if there's nothing, then I have to really think about, is this the right role for me moving forward? Have I given everything that I can give? And as a result of that, introspective thinking, I have been able to then leverage my network to go find the next job. About 5 years ago, I had kind of that aha moment where I had been really deep in one area, and I knew I learned what I could learn, right? I needed to move on. And so I put my feelers out, and I was offered a job that I didn't think I wanted, and people were encouraging me to take the job. One of the things that for me was challenging is I had always managed very large teams, hundreds of people. And this was an individual contributor role reporting to a very senior executive. And he said to me, I will personally mentor you and help you to broaden. And for me, that is what helped me to identify that as an opportunity that I wanted to take. And so I took that job. I had his ear. I was helping him to make decisions at a very broad level. Instead of being very deep in one area, I had the opportunity to learn across multiple competencies, different lines of business. And then again, about 2.5 years into that role, I did my self-reflection and decided I was ready to do something different. So for me, it was almost like a step down, because while my layer didn't change, my title didn't change, I was no longer managing people. So I thought people are going to think different of me, right? I'm not contributing in the same way. As part of that regular self-reflection, I don't just look at my day job. I look at what I call my extracurricular activities or side jobs. I am very passionate to my core about people. And so I have always had some sort of side job. I was COO for the Consumer and Small Business Employee Engagement and Inclusion Council for 4 years. In that role, I had the opportunity to partner with senior leaders across multiple organizations to have a positive impact on our employee engagement and inclusion. And it was a great opportunity. I learned a lot. And frankly, 4 years was probably too long. I should have been a little more critical about where I needed to spend my time and rolled off earlier. But I had to look at what I could contribute to them and also the return on investment on my time. Because the reality is, with those extra projects, networks, wherever you're spending your time, you're sacrificing something else. I would sacrifice time with my family because I had to get my day job done, and then I'm working on things for the council at night. Or traveling, in addition to the normal travel for my work schedule, to coordinate and host events, right? And so I had to determine, is the time that I'm spending giving me the right return? Am I having an impact in a meaningful way? Am I creating mentorship and sponsorship relationship with the other senior leaders on the council? Am I getting, the benefit of the work I'm putting in? And so I had to make the decision that it was time for me to pass that seat on to someone else. And as part of that, I had been part of our Hispanic Latino Executive Council and wanted to become more active. So I took that opportunity, right, again, as part of my annual assessment, to go out and leverage my network to find someone that was active in the council and volunteer. Can I take on a more leadership frontline role in the council? And again, volunteer-based organization. They were happy to have someone that wanted to come in and do work. And so I joined our Hispanic Latino Executive Council as the COO of the council. And through that, I have the opportunity to partner with the bank's most senior Hispanic Latino leaders, advocates, partners, to influence strategies that are going to positively impact our Hispanic Latino employees, clients, customers, and communities. So outside of my day job and my side job, I have the opportunity to have an impact at the enterprise level, in communities all over the United States outside of my market here in Los Angeles. And so we have done, wonderful things in terms of our focus on talent representation. We are very focused on how do we recruit, develop, and retain talent. We partner with ASER in different events, partner with organizations like Alpha, Unidos US to recruit and develop talent. We are also very focused as a council on our external partnerships. So how are we leveraging our capital and resources in partnership with nonprofits or other organizations so that we can have an impact? We also work with the lines of business in terms of the growth strategy, so making sure they understand the numbers that we shared earlier today, where we're talking about the business imperative of having products that serve our Hispanic Latino clients. As a result of that partnership, we've partnered with the Consumer Bank to develop in-language training, so that means our Consumer Bank employees can receive training in Spanish. So you may be a native Spanish speaker and you can speak to our clients conversationally in a financial center, but can you talk about our products and services in language? And so now we have that training. We have Spanish language services in more than half of our financial centers, serving our 9.5 million Hispanic Latino clients. So as a council, in my, in my side job, I have this opportunity to stretch well beyond the work that I do every day. And who knows, that may create exposure opportunity for me that may result in my next job, right? And so I can give back in the communities to our employees, to things that are important to me while I'm delivering results in the business. And so for me, that has been very critical to my success and how I expand my network outside of my silo of my line of business, where it's really easy to get focused on, well, I need my boss to sponsor me. I need their boss to sponsor me, right? There are people I would never know if I had not engaged in the Employee Engagement Inclusion Council or Hispanic Latino Council. And so it's been a great opportunity for me to stretch. The last thing I'll say is, each of us are in this room because someone sponsored us. You talked about pay it forward, right? We've been talking about that. It is important. Someone sponsored us. So when you go back, how are you going to share the information that you learned? Who are you going to advocate for and sponsor? If you're in a seat where you're making decisions about talent, make sure that you're bringing other people up. Listen, so don't bring one of us to the meeting, bring 4 of us, right? We like community, bring us all together. And so leverage the power that you have. Thank you.
Thank you. So ladies, we have a few minutes for some questions. Are there any burning questions that need to be answered in the audience? If not, I have a few. I was taking notes. In case you didn't notice, I was taking notes as they were both talking. Okay, I'll kick us off, and then maybe our conversation will inspire you to ask. So I really liked the idea of the 4 E's of excellence. I thought that was a great idea, Maria. And it was interesting to me to hear, Jessica, as you were talking, it was kind of very similar. There were a lot of overlapping themes there. And one of the things that I thought was really important was the whole conversation around exploration and how exploration leads to curiosity, which in your conversation, Jessica, I really saw it as taking the form of getting comfortable with uncomfortableness, right? And I think it's very easy for us to be very good at something, do very well at it, and get comfortable with it. But what we're hearing from both of you is that you have to explore. You have to get uncomfortable with that. Yeah. So what practical tip could you give to someone to get comfortable with that uncomfortableness, to make that change, to take that risk to explore?
The practical tip is just embrace it, and then go for it, and then just, silence your inner voice telling you, why are you doing this, blah, blah. No, just kill it, and then go for it.
Yeah. You got to get comfortable being uncomfortable, and then find what is that thing that helps you to feel more confident, right? Put on your red lipstick, your favorite earrings, whatever it is, right? Your purple jumpsuit, whatever it is that gives you that confidence so that you can break through that, and know that if you are pushing and you say, hey, I think I'm ready for that next job, and you're advocating for yourself, be ready that the other person may say, you know what, these are things that I think you're not ready, that you need to work on them. And be willing to embrace that and take it away and reflect and grow.
Anyone out there yet? I have another. Okay. So yesterday, Myrna talked about, when asked about work-life balance, right? And she was basically saying, you know, it's a choice. You have to make a choice about what you're going to prioritize. And Jessica, you were talking about at times you chose your career over family, and at other times family over career came first. I think, you know, the challenge for us as Latinas is that sometimes we face backlash as a result of making those choices. So I was hoping maybe you'd be open to sharing how you dealt with that, and Maria, in the difficult choices that you had to make, that maybe your family or that culturally weren't as acceptable. Like, how did you deal with that, and what advice could you give to the audience on learning to deal with that backlash that maybe you may experience?
Yeah, so I really like what Myrna said yesterday about the choices. You know, you can have it all, but, you know, in certain different times. So in my case, you know, supporting, you know, and it's hard in some cases because in our culture, you know, is a macho culture, so men will, you know, you have to take, so in my case, I had a support from my husband, and he gave up, you know, portions of his business to support me and things like that. So that was great, and I think, you know, I always like one of the advice that Sherry Sander from Facebook said, you know, choose your partner. In our case, you know, maybe older and all this stuff, but for the young generation, it's important because you need to have that partnership. The other thing that I've been talking about more recently is not work-life balance, but is work-life integration. Because with the technology, now you have more, you know, life and work is very together. So that actually brings flexibility, also brings issues because, you know, you're always connected. But if you are able to embrace that you can be at home and, you know, taking care of the kids or something else, but you are able to step out and then, you know, attend a meeting, a call, and things like that. Or, you know, I need to take this right now for my kids, but then at night you connect. So those are the things that I think with the technology has evolved us to more integration and for us to pay for, you know, that we can advance.
And so for me, I didn't have so much backlash from others. It was more like self-inflicted. I had a lot of mom guilt that I wasn't there enough. You know, the stay-at-home moms would all hang out and drink coffee, and my daughter was at school at 6:30 because I had to get to work. And so for me, that was the challenging point. I've had, you know, my husband and my parents who are extremely supportive and pitch in when I can't. You know, I do a fair amount of travel, and they tell me it's okay because I'm the one that feels bad, right? My daughter sometimes makes me feel bad. But you know, I've had a great support system, which has allowed me to make the time for career where I needed to. And I do a lot of integration in terms of, you know, using my phone to answer emails so that I can step away, or if I have to go to a school event where I know I've got something important that I'm waiting for. But I'm also very deliberate about making time where there is not going to be any work. When I go on vacation, I set the example for my team. Unless like the bank is on fire, do not call me. You know how to text me because I'm not going to check my email. Otherwise, I know you guys got it. And if you don't, figure it out. And so I am very good about making the separation so that I do have the time to dedicate to my family. I tell them I work hard, and when I'm working, also don't text me for things that are not important. But when I am making that time away, it is for them.
Okay. So 5 words or less. Any parting advice for the audience?
Pay it forward, power of one.
Yeah, just, you know, enable others, you know, and we need to, you know, enable the new generation, you know, to sponsor them and mentor them.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh, yep.
Sorry, quick, now that I just thought about something. How have you both, could be for either of you, felt about really building that community or sisterhood with other Latina leaders within your organization?
I think at the beginning of my career, you are, when you're young, you sometimes, and you're the only one, you are trying to survive and be the only one. So now it's changing, right? So now in my case, and then there was no Latinas in my circle. So I couldn't even relate or find other women. But now, that is changing. So it's just fantastic just to have other Latinas, and not only Latinas, just women in general, because, they provide different perspectives in building that forward. And in my case, not only I, mentor a lot of women, because I'm the diversity and inclusion sponsor, but also I do a lot of recruiting trips, to countries, in South America and other places, to bring the talent and then onboard them, to retain them, because that is key. And then most recently, what I'm trying to do is create scholarships in Hispanic serving institutions to encourage Latinos in general to apply and to study STEM, so we can, do that. So, and hire them, because the gap is significant on all the jobs that we have to hire for.
And so I would say that where I've had challenges have been more women, not necessarily Latinas, and sometimes we don't know that we're doing it to each other. And so it's okay to pull someone aside and say, like, hey, I noticed, some frustration there, is there something that I can do differently? How, as a woman, like, let's stick up for each other, right? You create that community. When I travel, I wear a shirt often that says empower women, or the future is female. I find people start asking about it. Oh, do you really think empower women? Yeah, let's empower each other, right? And it's okay to have those conversations and talk about it with your male counterparts as well, right? But I think as women, sometimes there is this stigma that I can be the only one, or someone's trying to pull me down because I'm going up. And so it's okay to have dialogue about it and be open about it. And for me, that has helped to develop partnerships.
Let's give Jessica and Maria a round of applause.